NBA champions, the Milwaukee Bucks. Feels weird to say, right? Really does. Okay, obviously the biggest talking point is Giannis is 50, drops a 50 piece on the way out the door, and they're NBA champions, and that was the finishing move we wondered if they had. But what I've heard today is it's like, I like to smile because it does happen every year. Like literally every year, a team wins a championship and here we go with the dynasty. It happened last year with the Lakers. Right? The Lakers were in the bubble. They were a tremendous defensive team. Remember, they didn't have to play the Clippers. And they got great matchups along the way. They didn't have to play the Bucks, who were the best team in the East in the regular season. And instead they got the Heat, who were probably the third or fourth best team. And immediately the Lakers' new dynasty had begun until they lost this year, and injuries were very much a factor. Additionally, we've seen this done before. I mean, I've heard, hey, greatest ending of series ender performance they've ever seen because it's 50 points. Now, I'm going to admit, Giannis was outstanding last night. Part of the issue is this, like, the matchup favored them the entire series. Phoenix does not really have the type of personnel that can match up with Giannis. The Lakers do. The Sixers do. When fully healthy, the Nets did. There are plenty of other teams that do. You have to have a center who can guard him some, and preferably, the shot blocking type, like a Jokic, for example, like an Anthony Davis, and somebody who's a big enough body to also guard him on the perimeter. They had DeAndre Ayton, who had to match with him sometimes, and they really didn't. Jay Crowder, they really didn't have another option for a guy who matched him up size for size and had some of the versatility. Some of it doesn't exist because he's frankly like an X-Men, right? Like, who creates a 6'9", 235-pound athletic figure with the type of dexterity of Giannis Antetokounmpo? Some of this was the fact that he's just literally a freak of nature. Some of it is there's no real matchup. But, I mean, we've gone completely off the deep end. And I'll put this to Dan. Like, Dan is a very reasonable sports fan. He loves his team, but he's reasonable about it, right? And I watched the Nets series. Kevin Durant was far and away the best player in that series. I'm not sure Giannis was the second best player in that series because he struggled based upon their ability to match up with him. And they survived a depleted Nets team in order to advance. And yet somehow now we've gotten to this, it's Giannis's league and everybody's just like, what are you even talking about? Like, what conversation are we having here? I'm not trying to diminish their championship. They won the championship. They stayed healthy enough. They survived. They came back, won a game 7 against the Brooklyn Nets, where they just had a little bit more juice in the tank in overtime, as well as they were healthier. They survived the Atlanta Hawks without Giannis. They won the last 2 games without him, right? And they, frankly, survived the Phoenix Suns, despite the fact that the first game was really a feeling out process. Was Giannis healthy, and how would the matchups play? And they won the last 4 games of the series. I'm not trying to diminish that, but the reality is no one, if you were all healthy and you all lined up, no one would go like, the best team is the Bucks. And I don't believe many, if any, would say, if you line them all up and they're all healthy, I'm going to take Giannis above everybody else. But what happens? You win a championship, and now let's talk dynasty. You drop 50 in game 6. First time he's made this many free throws in his career, and we freak out. It was a dramatic finishing move. Dramatic finishing move. But this idea that all of a sudden that erases the realities of where he stands, the league, all the injuries. It's like laughable. Wasn't the best finishing game of all time? Wasn't honestly, probably wasn't in the conversation. Last summer at this time, what were we still buzzing? What were we still talking about? We were talking about The Last Dance, right? The Last Dance. Okay, so the argument towards Giannis is he had 50. They won a game at home. It was a great win. I'm not even close to trying to diminish it. Not close. But if we want to be honest about what exactly, what's the best finishing game, you're going to tell me that's better than Michael Jordan's last game with the Chicago Bulls? You're like, well, it was so long ago. It was. And he didn't shoot a great percentage, 15 of 35 in altitude. Okay. But he had 45 points. He had the game-winning steal. He had the last 3 buckets and 2 free throws to seal the deal, including the game winner over Brian Russell. And if you want to argue that Giannis was better, okay. It's fine. I mean, it's a different sport now. You take power forwards off the floor, and you put them with the ball in their hands, and you spread everybody out, and they play downhill. It's really hard to determine what everything would look like. And in this era, it was fantastic. And there was pressure on the Bucks. If they didn't win last night, I do think that it would have been really hard to win a Game 7 on the road in Phoenix, as both teams clearly played better at home. But we're so prone to this hyperbole, this immediate reaction. We're like, oh, man, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And it may be the greatest thing you ever saw in the last 5 minutes. LeBron James, Game 7 against the San Antonio Spurs. That was amazing. That was amazing. Kyrie Irving, Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors. That was amazing. But instead, what we do is the last thing we see has to be the best thing we see. And I guess the working hypothesis I've come up with is this. I tried to figure out for a long time, why do we do this? Why is everything greater, better, special, more spectacular at this particular moment? And I don't think it's because we want to credit Giannis for how well he played. I really don't think that's what it is. You want to know what it is? This is a personal thought hypothesis. I think we all want affirmation for how good our generation is. This time is. And so by doing it, we pick out whatever is the winner, whoever is the best, and we heap this praise on it because it makes us feel better about our own failures. NBA players will do it as well. Oh, Giannis is the greatest performance ever. Why? Because that's them saying the only way to beat them is to have one of these incredible performances. When the truth is, it was really good. It was really good. And the series gave us one of everything, right? You had a Chris Paul carried you game. Phoenix hits 20 out of 43's game. You have a Giannis block, which changed things. You have a Drew Holiday game. And then you have one game where Giannis completely and thoroughly dominates in the win. But he's not better than Kevin Durant. He's, I don't believe, better than Kawhi Leonard, although Kawhi is going to come back from reconstructive knee surgery. Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Jokic, Luka, all these guys, because they are more skilled shooting the basketball, what he's able to do, what he's able to accomplish is fantastic, and he does play both ends. But we were just talking about how bad a shooter he is, how bad a free throw shooter he is, a day ago. Could they overcome it? One win, one performance does not eliminate all of that. Although, if I'm going to be fair, when you make 17 out of 19 in a big moment like that, oftentimes there's carryover for the rest of your career, or at least for the next year. It's the opposite of Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson misses 4 free throws at the end of game 1 in the finals, never the same. Be interesting to see if Giannis making free throws at the end of this series, he's never the same. He's finally figured it out.